Yoel. The floor is now open to question. And I underline, please ask question and refer them to the speakers. Please. Mark.
Brief question to Professor Uzer. At the end of your comments, when you judged that there's no prospect of any kind of movement on the Israeli-Palestinian tract, you attributed that to what you called the intransigence of both sides. And I'm wondering, is there any public official in Turkey who would use that phrase?
We'll take two more questions and then Zaki, please.
Just a question for Professor Uzer. I'll have to apologize, it's not a question about Israel. When you do look about Turkey, especially the foreign minister's approach toward the Balkans, and you said he said Sarajevo was the Jerusalem, you could see a more pragmatic way about dealing with the conflict there and not pointing the fingers at the Serbs. Even though a very right-wing prime minister was voted 2 months ago, Turkey's still trying to bond or find ways in connecting with Serbia, even though there were crimes committed there against Muslims. And how do you see, well, in a way, how do you see the foreign minister's way of percepting that inside Turkey? Is he trying to show how Turkey is changing its way towards the Balkans?
We'll take one more. Zaki, please.
Thank you. I recently attended a conference in Nicosia, which dealt with the same topics here, and realized there is a real fear in Cyprus with regard to Turkish possibility of invading or carrying out an attack on Cyprus or on the gas installations. I want to ask the panel, what do you think there was the feasibility of such a move by Turkey? What is the assessment in Turkey with regard to Israeli response or reaction if this happens? And is this a kind of deterrence on Turkey's move in this regard?
Professor Uzer.
Yes, okay. Thank you for the questions. I don't think the Turkish officials would use the phrase intransigence for their own position, but for Israel, I mean, Turkish decision makers believe that Israel is at fault and they want what they want, apology and all that. So yes, I think yes.
Israel and Palestinians. That's what I understand.
Oh, okay.
Blaming them equally.
You said the situation
of course.
is frozen because of the intransigence of both sides, meaning Israel and the Palestinians.
No,
What do Turkish officials ever say?
no, they would not. I mean, I think Turkey has become closer to Hamas, even at the expense of Al-Fatah. So, I think they wouldn't use that phrase. I don't think, and they haven't used that phrase as far as I know. As far as Turkey has become a party to the Arab-Israeli conflict, no doubt, on the Arab side, but not only on the Arab side, among the Palestinians, having a more pro-Hamas policy, undoubtedly. I think that has been clear. On the Balkans, I mean, not only in the Balkans, but everywhere, I mean, there's been a lot of emphasis by Ahmet Davutoğlu on negotiation, peace, and coexistence and all that. And you're right to point out that he didn't really criticize the Serbs themselves, but tried to have this sort of, he seems to have a romantic approach to foreign policy, and that romance seems to be towards the Ottoman Empire, the nostalgia. And I think they were quite serious, in trying to solve problems not only in the Balkans but between Israel and Syria as well. So in that sense, I don't think the writing was on the wall because of political contingency. I think Turkish-Israeli relations went downhill. Yes, there was the rhetoric of anti-Israeli rhetoric, but not only by Erdogan but also by Ecevit as well. So yes, there is definitely this criticism of Israel. But I think could have okay, maybe, I mean, I don't think things would have gone that bad between Turkey and Israel if there had been some movement on the Palestinian front. I'm not saying this is because of Israel that there has been no progress on the Palestinian front. That's not what I'm saying. But any peace process, even today, would have a positive impact on Turkish-Israeli relations as well. Attack on the natural gas? I don't know. Do you want to answer that maybe? I mean, I wouldn't expect an attack on on the natural gas exploration. I mean,
let me deal with this question. Recently, the government of Cyprus announced the winners of the tender, or in the tender for what is called Block 12, which is the area within the Cypriot EEZ, the exclusive economic zone, and luckily or not, it depends how you look at it, no Israeli company won anything in this block, and so even that reason does not exist. But even if somebody won on the Israeli side, there's no reason for Israel to interfere in this situation which you described. Is it likely that Turkey will resort to this? Turkey did go to all the big European companies in advance of the tender, or when the tender was published, and warned them not to participate in the bidding. I don't think that any, to the best of my knowledge, no company refrained itself from approaching or depositing proposals. And the winners, among others, were the Russians. And the Russians certainly couldn't be rattled by any Turkish threat. So I doubt that Turkey is also a member in NATO. Turkey formally, I don't think that it matters, but formally there are still negotiations with the EU. Cyprus is a member of the EU. Highly unlikely.
We'll take another round of questions. Please.
Is it possible, thinking about what Bernard Lewis predicted that Turkey would turn into Iran, and Iran would turn into Turkey. Now, is it possible that actually we're flagging a dead horse? That actually under the Trident strategic pact between Israel, Turkey, and Iran, I'm not too sure what we really got out of the entire thing. And now that that Turkey is distancing itself from Israel and perhaps serving as maybe not a model, but some other possibility for the Arab countries, perhaps it's in our, it's actually good for Israel that Turkey is distancing itself from Israel and therefore can be much more influential in the Arab world.
We'll take 2 more questions.
I have 2 questions, very short ones. First to Umut, you mentioned that the view of Turkey toward the Middle East is romantic a little bit, or Davutoglu has a romantic view. Don't you think that the Kemalist view that you can become part of the EU is more romantic than that? And the second question is to both of you, to Oded Eran and to you, Umut. It has to do with the process that was described very nicely by Oded, that the U.S. is changing the balance, the energy balance here, our balance of power, and they may withdraw from, if I understood properly, they may withdraw from, or their interests will be less in this region. And I wonder if you can conclude that Turkey and maybe other countries will be more dependent on Russia in that regard, and Russia will become an important power in this region as a result of this process.
One more question, please.
If I am right to say that Turkey has become an Islamic Republic, quite far from the Kemalist regime, and Egypt has become an Islamic Republic, and there is a chance, we see it perhaps longer, but that Syria will become Islamic Republic. Isn't it a new challenge? Challenge to Israel, to United States, to Israel, of course, that Turkey, Syria, and Egypt will make a common front.
Please. Do you want to start?
I can start with regard to Turkey becoming an Islamist or Islamic Republic. I tend to assume that this is the case, and this is the case in all the other countries that you mentioned surrounding us. The only difference is that in Turkey, even though Turkey withdrew its ambassador from Tel Aviv and expelled the Israeli ambassador from Ankara, both flags are being still on top of both embassy buildings, both in Tel Aviv and in Ankara. We don't know what will happen in Egypt. The current Israeli government have been much more accommodating towards Egypt than it was towards Turkey, and it seems that the way is much steeper on the Egyptian direction. In Jordan, we don't know exactly yet what will happen, and in Syria, we never had flags, even though we really wanted to check the hummus there. So, I think this is why, exactly because of that, this is why Israel has to find a way to normalize the ties with Turkey. Because in Turkey, the ruling party does not demand to cut ties with Israel at the moment. They're very critical. They've got many more tools in the diplomatic attaché case that they can use, which they did not. Apparently, there's a Muslim government in Turkey, and there is a Muslim government in Turkey who recognizes the right of Israel to exist within the 67 borders, as is. And I think that this is an opportunity that should not be missed. If Israel will normalize relations and apologize, and etc., I don't think that Erdogan will join the Zionist movement. Emine will not be a member of Hadassah Women. But we will have someone to talk to. Maybe even someone really to help us through all changes in the other countries around us. And I think that this is an opportunity that at least has to be checked. We cannot lose any more than we lost up until now. This is my point of view, totally personal.
Regarding Dr. Anat Lapidos's question, I mean, the Kemalist approach to the EU, yes, can be characterized as romantic, but it wasn't only romance. There was also a strong level of positivism. Westernization was seen as the only way to sort of to save the country, to become civilized would also mean national liberation for the country. So it was also instrumental. Yes, there was romance, but I think Westernization was almost seen as a pill that you should swallow so that you will be stronger, you'll be able to struggle against Western imperialism and all that too. Turkey becoming more dependent on Russia. As far as natural gas is concerned, Turkey's consumption of natural gas, around 70% comes from Russia, and some comes from Iran, obviously, but around close to 67% to 70% comes from Russia. And I think it has a very good impact on Turkey's environment, because those of us who lived in Ankara back in the 1970s, there was a lot of air pollution, and I think the natural gas, the coming of the natural gas in the 1980s to Ankara and other cities later on, sort of solved that air pollution to some extent. Regarding Turkey's becoming an Islamic Republic, that's precisely what I tried to say, that it's precisely not an Islamic Republic because of the legal system, because of the political system, because of the social life. So I was trying to explain that in my presentation. There is no change in the legal system towards Islamization. What is the most basic demand of the Islamists? Is it not the application of Sharia? There is no such demand nor implementation of Sharia. Social life, yes, there are problems in civil liberties, but the examples I gave you, a gay parade, drinking, and it's not only Istanbul and other places. It is becoming more, there are double processes going on, I think, in Turkey. Yes, it is becoming more conservative, but at the same time, it's becoming more open to the world. Different lifestyles is becoming, both ethnic or gender, different gender lifestyles is becoming more acceptable, not to the extent of Europe or the United States, but still it's happening. So I think these double process, yes, becoming more conservative, and but at the same time, not the same people probably, but different people becoming more open, is the double processes ongoing. Think about the JDP like Rick Santorum in the U.S. It is a conservative, he was a conservative individual who had problems with secularism, obviously, but probably Rick Santorum went further than JDP leaders in criticizing secularism, whereas Recep Tayyip Erdogan supported secularism in Egypt. So I think that's important. So I think we should be careful with terms Islamic or Muslim state. Some scholars use that term even before the JDPs coming to power. Muslim country, yes, but Islamic state, no. I don't think that would be the correct characterization.
I was shocked that you mentioned Rick Santorum. Hard to believe that only 6 months ago he was running for president. Yeah. Memories are short. There was an interesting question, Anat, to your question about Russia. The two sides, Russia and Turkey, have, there are women here, and I cannot use the expression of which one holds a certain part of the body of the other's body, but they have conflicting interests, but also mutual interests. Russians are interested in the Black Sea as an exit to the Mediterranean. They cannot, create tensions to the extent that Turkey has to do something about it. There is the influence of Turkey in Central Asia, on the border of the southern border of Russia. There are mutual interest, and so there is an equilibrium there. Turkey does not need to be dependent, in spite of the gas supplies, but there's also the web of pipelines which carry some of the gas to Europe, and so there are enough balances, checks and balances on the Turkey side to any attempt, if there is, by Russia to influence Turkish behavior. I think that there were two questions, one by you, and the other one about the Republic, the Islamic Republic. This is a serious issue for Israel. You mentioned only a couple of countries, but the angle is wider. Start from Tunisia with the Nahda, and start with the possibility that parties like the Nahda or even the Muslim Brothers in Egypt, Jordan, and Syria are the moderates. And the Salafists are the real danger. And there is a danger in some of the countries I mentioned. Certainly in Tunisia, there are a small minority, but their influence, because of the terror, because of the use of force and violence, goes beyond the numbers in terms of a political process. And so you see basically it starts from North Africa, it goes all the way to Turkey. I don't think that in Jordan it will happen tomorrow morning, but there is a growing influence of the Muslim Brothers. So is the case in Syria, as I said, in the post-Assad regime. Now, Arad speaks about one solution. I'm not so sure that there is a solution to this. Tomorrow morning we'll reach an agreement with the Palestinians. Will that solve the problem of that you raised? I'm not so sure. I'm not against the solution. I'm all for it, but I want us to be realistic about what it means in terms of in regional terms, in geostrategic terms. The United States can afford running away from here. We cannot. We'll continue to face this situation. Now, as I said, possibly the solution of our conflict with Turkey is one thing. I'm not so sure that it's enough. Erdogan, rightly or wrongly, looks at the situation beyond this Abu Marmara issue. And the relations between Turkey and Israel were very much based on the military security cooperation.
So we should change. Change the disc.
Yes, the trade goes on. Tourism will go back to Turkey, not because there will be an apology or not. And half of the military high ranks are in jail or accused in a legal process, being accused of treason and plotting and what have you. So I'm not so sure that just finding the right language and signing at the bottom will be sufficient. And I'm for it, but I'm not so sure that it will be sufficient.
Sufficient for what? This is the question. This is what we must formalize. Sufficient for what?
My answer to this is that the two states have to reach an understanding earlier to the agreement on the formula. What does it mean to end this conflict? The Abu Marmara is a small potato. I apologize for the people who lost their lives and people who were injured there for calling them small potato. But this is not the issue. The issue is how do you really go back to not what it was before, to 50% of what it was before. Can the two states' formal institutions, whether it is the Mossad or whether it is the military intelligence or whether it is the chair of the National Security Council in Israel, conduct a dialogue on what happens in Syria after we sign the agreement. If the Turks can assure in some way or form that the two states will conduct serious talks on evaluating the situation in Syria, saying what will be more or less acceptable to one state and the other in terms of the post-Assad situation. If both sides can reach an understanding of this, then it's worth it. If not,
you are setting preconditions.
I'm not setting preconditions.
You are. I am willing to settle for normalizing relationship for this on the same level that Israel has relationship with the Spanish government in Madrid, to start with. Then we'll have to work from scratch.
Arad, we don't.
This is the situation.
Yeah,
you are still.
On the bottom of the relation of the 90s are no longer the same interests.
Sorry. I'm a journalist. I heard something very important here. Are you implying, retired General Yadlin has said that the Spanish are not supporting a terrorist organization. Are you implying that the Turkish are supporting a terrorist organization?
No doubt about it. They're supporting Hamas in Gaza, which is a terror organization.
Arad, how do you think a missile? Describe to me the route of a missile from Tehran to the Hezbollah. What do you think is the route?
No, describe me a missile from Gaza to Kiryat Malachi that killed 3 innocent family this morning.
So you're implying that it came through. It came through Ankara.
Support morally by Erdogan that support Hamas leadership in Gaza.
You know what? I told the former. It was not a mistake that I used Spain as an example. You should remember that from your previous position. I told the former Spanish ambassador to Tel Aviv that he should be grateful to Erdogan during the war, the previous war in Gaza, the cast lead operation, because the amount of criticism that was heard from Spain towards Israel was only covered by the bashing of Erdogan, and no one paid attention to what happened in Spain at the time.
Is it different in criticizing Israel, which is legitimate, or supporting the terror organization that rule Gaza? It's totally a different issue. The Prime Minister of Spain came at the end of cast lead.
Because no one heard his bashing. He was
Israel,
yes.
not to criticize him, to support him
Because
against terror, which Erdogan never done.
Because he was not invited. At the time, Abdullah Gül was in Sharm el-Sheikh. If he would have been invited, he would have come. He would have come. He was not invited.
You are demoted from reality.
As I told you, I was always criticized for my views.
Arad, two things. A, there were 6 prime ministers. There were 6 prime ministers who came at the time. The Turkish prime minister, in my view, was offended by the visit of, by the fact that the Israeli prime minister visited Turkey 2 days before the event. Nobody cared to inform him that we are going into it. And rightly or wrongly, he was offended by this, and therefore, even if the foreign minister of Turkey would have been invited, he wouldn't have come. You can bet on this, but it's hypothetical. But I want you to go back, supporting terror. Describe to me the route of the missile from Tehran to the Hezbollah in Lebanon. Where do you think it?
It's very convenient to me at the time to obey the demands by the head of the panel.
Thank you very much.
מטורקיה.
מה פתאום?
לא.
Good panel, nice to meet you.